So we've got our amazing panels here with us. Panelists, how excited are you? Let me know. We'll do a competition before we start with the answers. How excited are all of you? Give me a cheers, give me a thumbs up.
Yeah,
super excited.
Love the enthusiasm. Though I cannot see Mr. Khalid.
Can you hear me? I suppose. Just a second, let me get my.
Mr. Khalid, we'd love to see how enthusiastic you are. So while Mr. Khalid gets his technicalities all cleared out, let's start with the very first question. And our very first question is for Mr. Ganesh. Mr. Ganesh, the enthusiasm is contagious. I can feel it across the screen. The first question to you is, right, of course, just like I'm sure you agree with this, that this is the era of robotic process automation. So why does intelligent automation matter? That's the very first thing. And where will it take us in the future?
Sure. So let me start by saying that almost every organization has been impacted by this disruption, and intelligent automation is helping organizations based on their level of maturity, their level of digital maturity. So those that are early on in this journey of theirs, what it's doing for them is it's introducing a digital mindset. It's helping them make their operations more efficient. And what it's also doing is it's helping organizations adopt a data-driven culture. And as these organizations move towards the future, it's also helping them integrate their legacy technology with the new technologies that they might be bringing in. While on the other hand, organizations that are higher on their maturity levels are leveraging intelligent automation to meet their corporate objectives, enhancing their customer and user experience to deliver higher value. So I think that's how intelligent automation matters to these companies. And where will it take us? Well, let's just say that we'll move from being a tactical company to a more strategic focus organization. And we'll start asking more human questions such as, why are we doing this? Or why are we doing that? And then, we'll start working on our strategy. And what I also believe is that we will move away from automating just processes because it makes things faster. And we'll start looking at the big picture. When we start asking these questions on why we're doing things, we'll start looking at bigger pictures, and we'll start introducing hyper automation where humans and technology will work cohesively. So it will not work in silos where tech is working just in their own box and things like that.
Fantastic answer, Mr. Ganesh. It seems like you are a leader, like a true hardcore data leader, and you strongly believe in data is God, rest is talk. And you mentioned about, why are we doing this? What is it that we're doing? And that's exactly just an FYI, not needed though. That is exactly what I kept asking my ex-manager, much to his dismay. Fantastic answer, Mr. Ganesh. Quickly moving on to our next leader, we've got Mr. Khalid. Mr. Khalid, the question to you is, how intelligent automation can help in streamlining content and process, but in the post-COVID world?
One of the biggest things, Nikita, that we have seen in the last 1 year is this, a paradigm shift of how people evolved from being offline and how did they come onto the other side of the fence. Now, what I would probably talk from a banking perspective, it's very important to understand that people who have come this side are looking for certain experiences that they might have not experienced it before. There's this whole hype about how digital has transformed and how people can get or navigate through things that they have. One most important thing is to actually ring fence them now, and content plays a very vital role. What happens in a banking scenario is the biggest challenge that we currently face is retention, because loyalty, I think, is a commodity lying in the mind of the customer, and we don't have any say there, right? So it's very important to look at behaviors, very important to look at transactions, and this is how we actually bring in a model called RFM, where we know that our top right customer is somebody who is being profiled with a 360-degree scenario. Here, we know that he likes this content, does not like this content, gets out when it gets a little harsher. He likes to watch videos. And all of this is basically impossible to manage manually, right? We have about 8 million customers. And how do we reiterate, configure these content pieces and send it out to people is very important. And implementation has happened through DCOs, through CMPs, which are basically dynamically optimizes the content and sends them. And this plays a very vital role in how we can actually cross-sell and upsell. And post-COVID scenario or pre-COVID scenario, it holds true, because when gone are the days when we actually position the brand in the minds of the customer. Today, we need to kind of bring it to the life, position the brand in the life of the customer, because it's all about experiences, as Mr. Gagan was saying, MX, TX, and CX, which basically comes out as a total IBX. So that's how dynamic it is and important.
Khalid, what a line. Loyalty is a commodity lying in the mind of the customer. I always note such intelligent lines and code later, of course, to sound intelligent. After that fantastic note, let's move on to our next leader. We have Manju Jalali, the Vice President and Global Head, Digital Manufacturing Global Foundries. Ma'am, what a pleasure to have you with us today. And our question to you is, how can we drive efficiency and resilience by leveraging intelligent automation?
Okay, so I think what Ganesh started with by saying that today digital transformation is driving change at an unprecedented level. And every organization is actually embracing that change. But what is important is that you need to pivot quickly, because the agility is important. How do you scale faster? How do you scale and as you embark and do it well? One of them is like organizational readiness, change management framework, ensuring that you have the right buy-ins at the right levels to really help on driving these efficiencies organization-wide. So what we have seen is that when you adopt these technologies, you start with your process. So you start with standardizing your process. You start with streamlining. You look at inefficiencies in the process. You make them lean. And then you look at then you have to have the right technologies in place to modernize these processes, make them intelligent, make them smarter, secure, interoperable. So with the combination of the technologies, the process streamlining, we are seeing tremendous, significant value opportunities across the value chain. And I can quote you a number of use cases, not only starting in the enterprise level, which are much more common, but even on the manufacturing side. And where we are seeing efficiencies is in predictive analytics. So how you can know the behavior of the tool and make the right decisions in terms of maximizing the throughput of those tools. How do you streamline the entire operations through automation and innovation? So you can use it. I mean, obviously, data is the king here. You have tons of data, but how do you look at it in a meaningful way to drive right decisions? And these are resulting in things like improving your yield efficiency, reducing your defects. So, I mean, you name it and you have it. When you use a combination of these technologies, starting from, I mean, as we talked about, simple RPAs to combining it with applied intelligence, machine learning, and then going to the augmented reality, you basically change the entire experience of how humans interact with the machines, the way you learn, the way the teaching or trainings are imparted, then how you apply that, how a lot of it is those manual, mundane tasks are driven by the robots, and how the value added work becomes much more efficient and streamlined through the use of these technologies. So yes, significant benefits and opportunities across the value chain.
Fantastic answer, Ms. Manju. I think it sounds like your motto is all about being fast and furious, but with a lot of caution and data and research. Fantastic answer. And moving on to our next leader, we've got Mr. Khalid, of course. Mr. Khalid, so our question to you is, what are the fundamental aspects? You spoke about hyper automation, of course. So what are the fundamental aspects of hyper automation that empower businesses?
I think the most basic, Nikita, is data. If you don't have data that is mature enough, nothing else works, right? So having said that, it's also important to kind of look at different aspects of how are we structuring it? How are we taking that to a level where AI and ML sit together? And very importantly, seeing it through a fact that, okay, that needs to, come through with the decisions that it makes more relevant sense, brings in contextuality, brings in timeliness, and brings in relevance. So according to me, I think most important thing is the big data, the pool that you need to have. It needs to be mature and it needs to be put into an actionable format rather than just having it, right? So we have seen traditional banks who are digitizing the data now, digitalizing it, and then adding it to the transformational bucket. It's very important to look at it from that angle. And I think data is the most important aspect to it. Rest, everything can come in, looking at how the journeys are orchestrated across customer touchpoints.
Mr. Khalid, just extrapolating on your answer, right? How does an organization or a business know that, okay, the data that they've captured can be put into an actionable strategy? What is that demarcation, or how does that data speak to you and tell you, okay, you know what, I am actionable?
Right. If data is just read, and not put into action, it's of no use. So when it comes to an enterprise, there's always this EDP, Enterprise Data Platform, which basically comprises of the data records and data sets with people, processes, and things. Then we have CDP, which is a customer data platform. So when these two things are put together, we actually make it possible through a DMP, which is a managed data platform where actionable things are made possible. What happens is, when we are looking at customers, say there are two sides to customer, customer is at the center, we have acquisition on the left-hand side, we have retention on the right-hand side. When it comes to customers within a particular organization, we know how should we be placing them. Are they transactions? Are they behaviors? Are they it could kind of come together, unless the data that sits as transaction and sits as behavior, not married together, you can't action them, right? So it's very important to put X, Y, and a variable Z.
I think we've lost Mr. Khalid, but what an answer, right? The actions. There's a lot of actions that were used for suggesting that the data has to be put into actionable strategies. Fantastic answer. Of course, let's move to Mr. Ganesh while Mr. Khalid comes back. Mr. Ganesh, so our question to you is intelligent process automation, that is IPA platform, necessary to drive digital transformation? That's number one. And how can an IPA platform assist organizations and workforces?
Sure. So I'll just based on your previous question and the answer that you got, I'd like to just use that to start and say that, you cannot improve your digital transformation maturity beyond a certain level, Nikita, if your automation is happening in isolation. And what organizations need to consider is to invest in a platform that drives orchestration between systems and human beings, like I mentioned before. So yeah, I would say an intelligent process automation platform is definitely important if you want to move from just tactical goals to something more strategic and disrupt your the way you work or the way an organization works. And your next question was how can this assist an organization or the workforce, right? So your IPA platform can improve end-to-end business process visibility and drive things like performance and improvement and generate insights as well. Okay. I believe that this will open up more opportunities to apply AI technologies and improve decision-making, especially in terms of accuracy and consistency with processes.
Fantastic answer, Mr. Ganesh, as always, of course. Let's move on to our next leader. Manju ma'am, this is the last question for this panel, and our question to you is, what are the things to consider while deploying AI-powered automation? And post that, we'd also want you to shed light on, is it needed to have in-house data scientists to help the deployment?
Absolutely. I think, as I mentioned, you can have all the modern technologies and platforms in place, but without the right processes, without the right methodology, the framework, skills, the talent base that you need to execute on those strategies that you have put in place is meaningless. So in order to really be successful in the journey, I think the first step is that you need to create the right talent base. You need to have the right skills in the organization. So, and traditionally what has happened is you basically equip your IT people with the right skills, and then they start driving the journey for the rest of the organization. But looking at how the world is changing, how things, the pace of innovation and change, it's not a small group of IT folk who can just drive. Then you have to wait for years before you can see any transformation. So you need to partner with your stakeholders, with your business, with your organization stakeholders to drive this change together. So what it means is that apart from the IT or the external ecosystem of vendors and experts, you create the internal talent. You basically pull into the resources from every single function. You impart them with the right knowledge. You make sure that they understand what it is all about. And you'll be surprised how fast they can pick up, because they're very close to the business. They know what is happening on the line. They know what are the issues, where are the opportunities. And they can then apply these skills that they gain immediately to transform the process. So it actually works much better when you have your stakeholders with you, learning the art of transforming, picking up the skills around the tools, and then applying it to the core processes that they are running day in and day out. So the first is obviously to build the right skills, build the right talent base within the organization, and of course, leverage on the external partner ecosystem to accelerate on the journey.
Manju ma'am, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, and the second is the change management framework, as I was talking about. See, without having the right mindset, it is very hard to navigate through this change and get the buy-in from the rest of the organization. So the organization needs to be ready. You need to have a top-down mandate that this is needed for us to be, for our organization to be relevant, to be, to position themselves for the future. So once you have that a mindset shift, a cultural change, that is really essential to drive this transformation, you can see that it will actually, you'll be move much faster in this journey to really transform your processes. And then the third is the approach that you take to really automate and innovate, which is you start with your process, then you get the platforms. You don't go into point solutions. You have the right platforms, you set the right foundations, which is, set the right infrastructure, whether it's for applications, whether it's in the cloud, whether it is for your, across the board, your security is in place. So once you have the right infrastructure, the foundation set, then you move ahead with how do you really apply these digital tools and technologies to automate, to innovate, and move towards, really creating the value for the organization.
Manju, you put up a very interesting point, right? Despite it being a digital transformation summit, the key point that you were talking about is to hire the right mindset, hire the right people. So our question to you would be, with your vast experience when it comes to hiring new talent, what is it that you look for? Do you look for skill set, or do you look for attitude, which can, of course, be trained?
Of course, the combination of a lot of things is, I think the first is, the passion, how excited the person is with that opportunity, the commitment, the attitude is extremely important. When you have the right mindset, when you have the passion to try out things, when you're creative, things will work out. And then, of course, it comes in, with the skills. And skills is something that you can train a person if they have the required background and the base. I think what very important is the attitude and the mindset towards that opportunity.
I asked because I'm making notes. Manju ma'am, please don't be surprised if you find my resume in your mailbox somehow. Just prepping for the interview round. Okay. Mr. Khalid, we're really happy to have you back, and we'd love for you to continue on a very intense, passionate conversation that you were having.
No, yeah, so I agree with Manju here. There are certain things that we see wherever there is opportunity, there is a hype, right? Sometimes organizations actually think they need to kind of consider, should they be transformed? Should they be rightly transformed? Or should they be, in a place where they can actually map out what is needed, right? In the bargain to kind of transform, some organizations tend to over-transform themselves. A very important thing, while Gagan was saying, TX is equal to MX, CX, and BX. But very importantly, what has pandemic or COVID taught us is how human are we in businesses, right? So human experience also becomes a part of this whole total experience. From a banking perspective, if I have to tell you, today we approve loans within 3 minutes. Gone are the days when it took 30 days, right? It just takes 3 minutes with this entire IPA in place. While we are doing so, some loans get rejected as well, right? So, the biggest question is, when we are solving a problem, right? Are we in a business where we are actually trying to give a loan or solving a problem? If I am giving a loan today to, say, somebody who is needing a loan within 3 minutes, the question is, am I solving a problem there? No, I'm actually creating one for the next 16 months till he pays that loan back, right? So how human can a brand be? How bold can you be? You have transformed yourselves to make that experience happen, but add that HX to it so that the trust factor still lies, because humans love to talk to humans and they need that empathy. I think AI and the experiences that we are talking of in terms of digital transformation lacks that lacks that emotional empathy. So that's also an important aspect to be considered, as I put it. It should be a right mix without having too much of this and too much of that.
That's a very interesting point, because all our speakers from previous sessions, they've just harped in on how digital bots and AI ML can actually be replacing a lot of your human talent. So you talk about striking a balance. What is that balance? Like, what is that? Okay, 50% of this, 60% of that. What would you suggest is the right balance so that even the digital does not lose touch of human?
If I have to put it in a context again, loan is approved, I send out a message, your loan is approved, and the person is happy. If the loan is rejected, don't let a bot answer that. Let there be empathy to say, look, there are certain things that we have identified. Hopefully your next loan would be approved in the next 3 months. There are these things that you need to improve on your financial well-being, improve on your financial habits, and this would improve your credit scoring and you would get a loan. I mean, I'm just putting it to a context, right? So if the bot goes, I'm losing a customer forever. There is a huge dissonance. We are in an industry that, we approve 7% loans out of 100% applications. There are 93 dissonant customers or consumers of the category. And this is, though it involves risk, it also involves risk on the other side. So hence bring in that element of how do you balance this right and strike through that entire journey, because customer knows where he wants to go ultimately.
Fantastic answer, Mr. Khalid. Of course, our next question is, all these technologies, right, fall under the umbrella of Industry 4.0, which refers to the recent trends towards automation and data exchange in manufacturing. We'd love for Manju ma'am to kindly share her thoughts on this.
Sorry, I think you broke a bit. Can you repeat that if you don't mind?
Absolutely. So the technologies that we've been talking about fall under Industry 4.0, which refers to the recent trends towards automation and data exchange in manufacturing. So what are your thoughts on the same?
Oh, absolutely. See, again, it comes back to, if you want to really position yourself for the future, you need to move in your maturity curve. So, it's like age of 3.0, 4.0. And what is important is how, when you define your processes, are they, number one is that, are they secure? Are they interconnected? Are they interoperable? Can you automate them? So it's a combination of all these factors across the value chain. You start from, as I said, you set your foundation, you go through the supply chain, you look at your manufacturing pillars, you look at your data. How do you derive the most value from your data? How do you do actionable insights, as you were speaking through this session? So it is absolutely important to go through your maturity curve. You need to assess where you are, what are the gaps, what do you need to do really to truly transform and move towards this age of Industry 4.0, especially in the manufacturing sector, because traditionally it's a very complex sector. But what we are seeing is that when you set the right foundation, when you have the right talent base, when you have the right processes in place across your architectural framework, then you can see that you apply these technologies, you apply your these data that you are essentially pulling in from multiple IoT tools, sensors, etc. How do you process that and bring in the efficiencies, bring in the cost? Basically, it's not only efficiency, it is how do you make it smart? How do you make it intelligent? How do you reduce your cycle time? How do you maximize your throughput? How do you derive the productivity? So it's a whole lot of things. And there are tons of use cases that you can apply, from very simple to very complex. And I can share you with an example where what we have done is that someone is asking, what are the scraps for today, example, or what are the defects for today. It's a chatbot. They go in and then they proliferate multiple systems, and they crunch this information and present to you. And it's not a straightforward answer, because they have to crunch so multiple informations. And if there are issues in the line, how you don't just look at the issue, you're also helping to fix these issues. Or in the manufacturing sector, what is happening is the tools go through maintenance on a periodic basis. I think the first thing with the data you can do is that you don't need to necessarily have a scheduled maintenance, because then you probably are losing time, because if the equipment is not really due for maintenance, you don't need to, because based on a schedule, keep it for maintenance. So you can actually maximize the throughput by using predictive analytics to tell you that you can actually keep the tool running for additional X number of days. Or if the tool really has an issue, you can prevent your scrap by bringing it early in for maintenance. So this is just one example. And these are things that you can do through technology. Example, as I said, you predict when the tool goes for maintenance, then you use RPA to go through the checklist of maintenance, then you use an augmented reality, which actually guides a technician and operator what steps you need to take. And then, interconnecting it with multiple systems to tell you exactly, to look at your trend charts and start, putting in all these improvements proactively across the line. So there are tremendous benefits through these technologies in every single domain, and as you move your product through the line in the manufacturing sector. And Industry 4.0 is the way to go.
Fantastic answer, Manju ma'am. Mr. Ganesh, we'd like to ask you the last question. So the last question is, do you believe that artificial intelligence was brought to combat natural stupidity?
No, I don't think so. I think, artificial intelligence was brought in to solve complex problems. We've moved away from use cases which were simple to complicated to now complex. And it's also got to do with the expectation that the customers have in terms of the rate at the speed at which they receive the end product or the goods that they might be buying, or whatever the case might be. Most of these complex problems are brought together by different dimensions, which for us as human beings to analyze might take a longer time. But the ability that artificial intelligence brings to the plate is to draw insights from multiple dimensions of data from different data sources and quickly show you, insights which are actionable. And those actions help you meet your goals. So you might have a simple question as just like what Khalid was saying, should I, 93% of people are losing or not getting loans. So how do you know those 93 should not get a loan, or why only that 7% should get a loan? What parameters are being used to answer those questions? For a human being to make that decision, it would have been pretty subjective. And it's dependent on things like maybe the mood of the day. Didn't get the breakfast that he or she wanted, so I'm pissed off. I'm not going to approve any loans today, for example. But when AI comes in, it gets objective. It's got to make a decision based on predictive analytics and all of those pieces coming into play, and it's much faster. So it's that's my response to your question.
That's a great answer. And also tip to all the loan givers, have your breakfast on time. Fantastic. Amazing panel. What a pleasure to have all three of you. Thank you so very much. And any takeaway, what is that one takeaway you'd want to give? It could transcend career, it could transcend personal life, private life, whatever it is. So what is that one takeaway you'd want to give all our amazing audience members? We'd start with Iman.
Go ahead.
I think just enjoy what you're doing, while you're creating value, but don't forget that, you have a life as well. So
Fantastic answer. Mr. Khalid.
Basically.
Yeah, I would again impress upon the same statement, saying that we are in this evolved world. Let's not forget that we're humans, and end of the day, we all need to, make sense as humans as well.
Fantastic. Mr. Ganesh.
The one thing that I'd like to just say is we need to think how we impact the mindset before we start thinking about technology. So it goes back to being human, and we need to see how we transform ourselves, we impact human beings, then thinking that we'll get the best technology in town, and then we'll suddenly become this super force that can do magical things. No, it's not like that. You've got to impact the mindset.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you so very much. Have a fantastic day ahead. And thank you so much for gracing our session today.
Thank you.
Thank you.